Hi everyone, John Heath here again for MiltonRose Learning with another Let's Learn video on Animal Farm. So we're going to look at some of the basics, also some of the key context about the history of what was going on politically at the time, and then we're also going to unpick some of the key characters for you to kind of help give you a real good start into this novella. Okay, so first off then, let's look at some of the basics. Okay, so in terms of genre then, this is a political allegory, a really good term to use, where basically every character stands for somebody or symbolises somebody in the real world. Okay, and each character on the farm symbolises an important political figure within Soviet Russia. It's also a satire because it's kind of very humorously kind of dissecting kind of Soviet figures and dystopian fiction as well. And Orwell explores the corrupting influence of power within society through this text, and the exploitation of the working class under totalitarian regimes, kind of dictatorial regimes that kind of corrupt society. Then in terms of the plot itself then, if we just line that up, is the animals on the farm, on Animal Farm, they actually overthrow their kind of overlord, Mr. Jones, and they aim to create a society of equality. They have an ideology called animalism, which is putting animals first, and they try and create this perfect society. However, after the revolution, the pigs take charge amongst the animals, but Napoleon and Snowball, who were the two kind of leader pigs almost on the farm, they clash, and Napoleon eventually drives Snowball off the farm. Okay. Then, moving the plot forward, Napoleon seizes control of the farm for his own ends, and he uses these almost guard dogs who symbolise Joseph Stalin's kind of secret police, who kind of kept everyone terrorised in real life. And he uses the dogs as enforcers to keep everyone in line. And the pigs end up, to be honest, betraying the revolution's ideals. So they leave the animals actually in a much worse state than before the revolution. So they were promising the earth, kind of like Joseph Stalin's communist Russia. They were promising the earth to the workers, but then actually left them in a much worse state at the end. And the point seems to be that we can never buy into the propaganda of totalitarian regimes because they always just lie, like the pigs and Napoleon on the farm. Now, in terms of the historical context is very important to dissecting this text. So let's have a little look first at what post-war society was like. Now, after World War II, then there was disillusionment that kind of grew with political systems, but especially totalitarian regimes like Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union, which you're probably going to know if you do history. And Joseph Stalin was a dictator in Soviet Russia, and he promised to create a workers' paradise in Russia, but ended up killing millions of his own people, either directly via purges or indirectly through things like famine and things of that nature. So people were kind of tired and jaded with hearing these totalitarian promises. And George Orwell, the writer, was one of those. He was extremely disillusioned with Stalin's Russia and wanted to skewer it in his book and actually show how kind of wrong-footed and almost evil that the whole regime was. Then, in terms of revolution and ideals, Animal Farm critiques the betrayal of revolutionary ideals. So revolutions, like the communist revolution in Russia, they always begin with these broad, brilliant aims to make life better. But they always seem to historically get betrayed by, as the leaders get into power, they start to kind of get a bit too soft and a bit too kind of corrupted by the power. And Orwell is trying to show that even the most idealistic leaders, and I'm sure even Stalin could be argued to be idealistic at the start of his career, but the power eats away at them and corrupts them. So then generally after time they throw away those revolutionary ideals that they once had. And then linked to that is power and corruption. So the pigs in Animal Farm, they actually symbolise the dangers of dictatorship in the real world, because obviously it's an allegory, and untrammelled power. So if we don't kind of have checks and balances to hold people to account, and they can generally do what they want, then situations like what happens in Joseph Stalin's Russia, where he would just have people killed for looking at him the wrong way almost, it kind of shows the kind of dangers of that unfettered dictatorship. Now, if we have a little look at the key characters, so now the kind of star of the show in some ways is a pig called Napoleon. So he's a cunning, manipulative pig, and he's risen to power after the revolution on Animal Farm. And he kind of shows the corrupting influence of power because he becomes a tyrant, a power-hungry kind of maniac, and he betrays the original ideals of the revolution. So he symbolises the transformation of leaders from honest kind of revolutionaries into dictators, exploiting the system for their personal gain. He obviously represents as well Joseph Stalin in Soviet Russia. So it'd be a really good one for you to research. Then next we have Boxer. So Boxer is a hard-working horse who believes in the ideals of animalism. They want the revolution to succeed, and they're always working really hard on the farm. They represent, though, the exploited working class who are very loyal, but they're betrayed by those in power, and there's nothing they can really do about it. And symbolises the tragedy and unquestioning faith in authority and the exploitation of the proletariat. That's a great word for your essays. Proletariat, we just mean working class, and that's what Boxer really symbolises. Then we have Clover, the sheep. So a motherly mare who is supportive of the revolution and the welfare of others. So Clover represents the common working class individual who starts to question the inequality but struggles to act on it, struggles to kind of actually make the world a better place. So they symbolise the disillusioned working class who are aware of exploitation but they're powerless to stop it. They can't actually kind of do anything productive in the world to make it stop. Then we have the dogs, or the guard dogs, I suppose. They're trained by Napoleon. So when he takes over, they're his private enforcers. So if anybody gives him any problems on the farm, the guard dogs go for you. So they're kind of his security force. So they represent the use of force by regimes around the world, not just Joseph Stalin, but totalitarian regimes anywhere, to maintain control and to keep the public in their place. So they symbolise the dangers of blindly following authority and the abuse of power for personal gain. Symbolically, they represent, you could argue, Stalin's dreaded secret police. They were called the NKVD, who would just knock on your door at night and then take you away. So it's kind of, the brutal side of totalitarianism. Then we have Squealer, okay, this little pig here. So he's a very persuasive, manipulative pig who spreads Napoleon's propaganda to all the other animals. And propaganda are kind of, in this context, is like almost like political spin and political lies to make people believe what you're saying. So he represents the role of propaganda in totalitarian regimes, twisting the truth constantly to get the public to agree with what you want. And clearly symbolises the power of language and manipulation in controlling public perception and maintaining Napoleon's authority. Okay, because totalitarian governments can't just stay in control with, a gun in the face of the public. They need to persuade as well and be more subtle. So Squealer really represents that propaganda element. Then we have Snowball, kind of a bit of a tragic figure. So he is a visionary and an intelligent pig who initially leads the revolution alongside Napoleon. So he represents idealism. He wants to make the world a better place and the farm a better place for the animals, but he's scapegoated for the failures of the regime. He's blamed by Napoleon for everything that goes wrong. And he symbolises the betrayal of ideals and the political infighting. So when revolutions take over, normally politicians kind of argue about who's going to lead the revolution forward. Now, symbolically or historically, Snowball represents a revolutionary called Leon Trotsky, who you can research as well, and we'll probably do a little bit of a video on the allegory of this. But basically, he disagreed with Joseph Stalin. They had a massive falling out, and Joseph Stalin sent assassins all around the world to try and kill Leon Trotsky, and until eventually he did get him in Mexico. Now, Snowball gets chased off the farm in a very similar way to Leon Trotsky, so he represents the betrayal of ideals. And then lastly, we have Benjamin. So Benjamin is, as we can see, a cynical donkey who sees the farm's situation clearly, but he remains sceptical of any change. He doesn't think things will truly change. And he represents the intellectuals who are aware of the injustices in society, but they feel powerless and not really sure that kind of the revolution will make things any better. So Benjamin symbolises the disillusioned individuals in society who recognise that, yeah, there are things wrong on the farm or in society generally, but we can't really change them. He's symbolised by a quite a famous phrase, the more things change, the more they stay the same. You can never fully change society in any meaningful way. Okay then, so if we just have a little overview just before the end. So that's been hopefully just a nice little beginner's guide to Animal Farm. So looking at some of the basics, some of the key context as well, and then we've just started to tease apart some of the key characters, and of course we'll obviously develop this further into in more of our videos. So obviously, as we always say, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and tap the bell icon. It really helps us to grow, and we really appreciate it. And obviously, thanks for listening. We'll be back with more videos soon. Take care.